The Yankees really have been the embarrassment of New York. And to say whatever you want about what they had in the beginning of the season and going into the All-Star break and how many All-Stars they had on one team, to me right now, the Yankees are as bad as any team in the majors. And maybe it is because of DJ LeMahieu's injury or Giancarlo Stanton's injury or all these injuries in that offense, which that lineup has been absolutely putrid. But not only that, this rotation, which was one of their strengths going into the second half, has been one of their weaknesses. Their bullpen, where they had the best closer in baseball in Holmes, he's out on the IL. He has been absolutely horrible since the All-Star break. Everything the Yankees have touched in the second half of the season has turned to stone. How many lousy goose eggs do the Yankees have to put up to figure things out? They were up in this division almost 13 games going out of the All-Star break. Now they're only 9 games up on the Blue Jays and the Tampa Bay Rays. They cannot let these two teams catch them, because if that happens, they're going to be playing chase all the way through to the end of the season. Aaron Judge, he's played better than every single player on this team, but that's not saying much. Aaron Judge has been in a little bit of a slump. They need Giancarlo Stanton to come back. They need DJ LeMahieu to come back. They need this rotation to figure things out. And Montas, and I'll say this to be very, very nice about it, he has been absolutely horrible. Now, I don't know what's going on in his head. Maybe the fact that one of his family members passed away before he was traded to the Yankees. I don't know what it is. But the Yankees need to figure this out. They cannot go into the playoffs with Garrett Cole, and he's not even a sure thing. Or Nestor Cortez, who hasn't been a sure thing in the second half. Tejon, who hasn't been a sure thing in the regular season in the second half. This has been an absolutely embarrassing last couple of weeks. And Brian Cashman did everything he needed to do at the trade deadline to make this team better. Adding Andrew Benintendi, who actually has been hitting for the Yankees. Bader, who hasn't played yet. Jordan Montgomery is 3-0 right now with the St. Louis Cardinals, and Bader hasn't even stepped on a baseball field for the Yankees. We just talked about Frankie Montas, who he hasn't been good. Trevino's been all right in the bullpen, nothing to brag about. Everything that the Yankees have done besides Benintendi hasn't been good. And that's not Brian Cashman's fault. He did what he was supposed to do. These players need to show up. They need to play hard. They need to have a soul on that field. Watch the Mets play. Look at the players. Look how happy the players are when one player hits a home run. That has not been the Yankees. I don't want to hear about Donaldson's game-winning grand slam home run against Tampa when you practically almost got swept at home by a team that you're better than. It has been an absolutely embarrassing last couple of weeks. I would say the last 6 weeks has been embarrassing for the New York Yankees. And Aaron Boone needs to wake up. He needs to do something to get this team to start playing. Because if he doesn't, this team will not be in first place. And this could be one of those catastrophical seasons where you had one of the best records we've ever seen in the first half of a season and then completely fall off and don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be catastrophic if that's the case. The only collapse I remember seeing that was that bad was the 2006 Tigers in the regular season when they were up by almost 20 games at the All-Star break to the Twins, and somehow they ended up still going to the World Series after that. They found their groove back in the postseason before losing against the Cardinals in the World Series. But you don't see them like that often when you have these double-digit leads at the All-Star break and make it work. But yeah, there's a lot of factors to that. Frankie Montas, like you were mentioning, rough go of it in 3 starts, 9 ERA since he's joined the Yankees so far. Again, we'll see with the family situation. So far, maybe you give him the benefit of the doubt. I used to have this problem with the Mets too all the time. They always force guys to pitch right before they either left for a paternity leave or something like that, or a death in the family type thing, and they always struggled. And maybe Montez is going through that right now type thing. But if he struggles for 2 more starts, yeah, that's definitely worrisome for a guy that you traded away a lot of good pieces in order to get, too. And a lot of these other bullpen pieces, too, seem so out of whack from where they were since Michael King got hurt, because they were very well set in those particular roles. And these are guys that are versatile. I'm not saying they are one-role pitchers, but it seems like they got rattled since they're going into those new roles and haven't been able to adjust. Aroldis Chapman has been used in so many different spots since he's come back, which he hasn't been comfortable within yet. Clay Holmes, like you were saying, is in a massive drought right now. And a lot of these other young pitchers, too, have really struggled. And with the hitting, the Yankees have had this problem before. You can't have 1 or 2 guys carry your offense and expect to win on a consistent basis and win against contending teams. They've done this in the past. Giancarlo Stanton carried them for 1 second half. I think it was 2018. And the rest of the guys couldn't hit. They struggled in the playoffs against the Red Sox. Aaron Judge has had stretches where he's done that, too. LeMahieu, when he first came to the Yankees, he was the only one hitting. Like, you're not going to be able to maintain consistency if you're doing it things like that. And that's what they're in right now. And now if Aaron Judge slumps too. Who knows what could happen?
And that's why I'm worried about this Yankee team. I wasn't worried about them last week. You heard what I said. I'm not worried about them, but this is another week. If you look at the games that the Yankees have played this week, I think the Yankees have played 6 games, and they have scored altogether 1 game where they had the Grand Slam home run from Donaldson, knocked off the Tampa Bay Rays 8-7. Besides that game, they have scored no more than 1 run in every single one of those games. And what does that tell you about this offense? You can't go into the playoffs like this. You're a better offensive team than half these teams in the major leagues. And these teams, like the Blue Jays, are outscoring you. There's something wrong, and maybe it is injury. But that's not an excuse. You're a professional baseball team. You have great players on your bench. This has to change if the New York Yankees plan to make the playoffs and make a run for the World Series this year.
And even going back to last week, too. Outside of 1 game against Seattle, they won the first game of that series. They lost 1-0. They lost 4-3. The Red Sox series, they won 1 game, but they didn't score more than 3 runs in any of those games either. So this is a drought that is very unheard of for a team as deep offensively, you would think, as the Yankees. Just so many people just slumping all at once. And I don't know how many are flukes, how many are not from where they were in the first half of the season, because they had a lot of guys that were all-stars. Gleyber Torres is a good player. We know that. They have a lot of talent in this lineup. But again, there's a lot of guys that are just like randomly flaming out. And all at once, that cannot happen, especially with the way the pitchers have been going too. Garrett Cole's been very streaky in the second half. Nestor Cortez has been fine, but not the Cy Young candidate he was for the first 2.5 months of the season either. Something definitely will have to change with this team. I'm not worried about it in terms of missing the playoffs completely, but there's definitely a chance the Rays, because they're getting hitters back. The Rays have had a lot of injuries in their lineup all season. 4 key guys out. If they can make a run with their pitching, they might have to watch out for that. The Blue Jays, I'm not as worried about because their pitching depth is still questionable to me.
As far as the Mets are concerned, they're just playing great baseball. Besides the Braves series, they're hitting at a pop. They're pitching great. I mean, Max Scherzer, even Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom lost the other day, but he still pitched a pretty good game. What did he give up? 2 runs? He's been dominant since he's come back. This rotation is as good as any rotation in baseball. So there's really nothing. Pete Alonso just hit his first home run in 56 at-bats last night against the Philadelphia Phillies. So if he gets back with his power after the All-Star game, and that's what usually happens. You go in that home run derby, it messes up your swing. And maybe it messed up his swing coming into the second half. But nevertheless, he has 102 RBIs. He's got 30 home runs. That's what you expect from a power bat at your first base position.
Yeah, I hadn't homered, I think, since the game I was at on July 24th, where he gave the Mets the lead in that one against the Padres. But yeah, had a massive drought when it came to power. Now, he was still getting on base. He was still contributing in other areas. But still, when you're having a drought like that, sometimes that can drag a team down. Like I was mentioning with the Yankees, sometimes having one guy carry them at certain points in the season. The Mets haven't had that kind of issue at any point where they have had a massive losing streak. Now, 3 out of 4 lost against the Braves just recently. Yeah, they had some trouble holding leads late. Their bullpen still at the trade deadline, not doing much, looked very questionable. Even the game they won, they were up 6-1 and held on to win 9-7. So still some question marks in that bullpen for the Mets, but a lot of good things to like within that lineup. A lot of guys as well are adapting to different spots in the lineup, not playing all the time. Guys like Vogelbach, guys like Naquin, they got at the trade deadline too, and guys that are platooning, and something that you never saw the Mets do in the past because they never had this kind of depth, and that's something that they could definitely get a spark on. And the biggest spark of this week is their young third baseman, Brett Baty, homering in his first major league at bat. So that's something they could definitely rally around. And
he's going to be a good player.
And he's going to have to play a lot now too, because not only Guillorme hurt right now, but Eduardo Escobar just went to the IL as well. So he's going to be playing pretty much every day.
And that's good because he's a young player. He's 20 years old, and the Mets wanted to call him up last year, but wanted to hold off on him to give him more eligibility, give them more control of eligibility before arbitration in 5 years. So I love what the Mets are doing right now. And I am not a Met fan, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't hate the Mets. And I think it's good for baseball. It's good for New York to see both New York teams make the playoffs and make a run. But right now, the better team in New York, I hate to say it, is the New York Mets.
It's time for Crunch Time.
Read the time. Gotta see the pitch.
All right, we'll start crunch time with baseball. The New York Mets and Brett Baty, buy or sell. He will be on the Major League roster for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I think he's the future of this team. 20 years old, had an unbelievable Double-A run this year, 15 home runs, batting over 300. He is the future at third base for the New York Mets. Absolutely buying it.
I'm buying it too, especially now with the 2 third base injuries, Luis Guillorme and Eduardo Escobar. I thought he might have been sent down maybe in August, but definitely with the September call-ups when they expand the roster, there's definitely no need to send him down at that point. So I am absolutely going to buy it. All right, buy or sell. The Browns will win at least 5 of 11 games that Watson is suspended.
Absolutely not. I don't think this team has it in them. I really don't. Offensively, they have Amari Cooper at the wide receiver position. They do have some tight ends that are pretty good and pretty athletic. And their running game, there's a lot of questions there. Kareem Hunt doesn't want to be there, wants to be traded, and Nick Chubb can't stay healthy. And until we can see Nick Chubb stay consistently healthy, I think this team's going to have a lot of problems winning games, so I am going to sell it.
I'm going to buy it. I think 5-6, I think, is something that I think is reasonable with the Browns still having other talent. NFC South doesn't have a lot of great teams where they could definitely steal some of those games against Atlanta maybe, or the Panthers, one of those games in week 1, gets in Baker Mayfield's head, something like that. There's definitely some easy games they can win. They're not a playoff team. I think they finish at 8-9 for the season or something like that, but I think 5-6 is something reasonable that they could do. I will buy that. All right, buy or sell. James Dolan will sell the Knicks and the Rangers by this day in 2023.
I'm going to sell that. I don't believe it's going to be in 2023. I think in the next 2 or 3 years it will happen. I don't think he's going to rush it. He's going to try to get as much money and have a bidding war with some of these billionaires. So I'm going to sell it.
I'm going to sell it too. I think it'll be more towards the end of 2023, kind of in the maybe November, December, in the season more because of the project in Vegas. So I am going to sell that as well. All right, we'll do a college football one here. Quinn Ewers is announced as the starting quarterback for Texas, maybe for 1 year because Arch Manning is coming. Buy or sell. He will have a better season this season than Arch Manning will next year.
I'm going to sell that. I think Arch Manning is a special player. I think he's proven to be that next generational type of talent, as his uncles and his grandfather being quarterbacks in the NFL and sensational quarterbacks. So I am going to sell that.
I am going to buy it. I think this is a guy that has a chip on his shoulder. He's one of the best prospects coming out. When he went to Ohio State, too, got beaten out there, and Ohio State fell apart late in the season. I'm sure he was definitely mad about that he didn't get that kind of playing time. And now, with all the circumstances going on here, he knows he's talented, and I think he'll end up proving a lot of people wrong here. I am going to buy that. Not that Arch Manning's going to do bad, but I think he'll play very well this season. All right, buy or sell. 2 out of 3 of these running backs, Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris, and Josh Jacobs, will be traded before the start of the season.
I'm going to sell it. I don't think before the season. I think it could happen at the trade deadline. The season's right around the corner. I just don't think these teams are going to pull the trigger and decide to trade away pieces of this magnitude until they believe they can get as much as they possibly can back for them. So I'm going to sell it.
I'm going to sell it too. Exactly what you said. I think Hunt will be traded before the season because he wants out. Damian Harris, I think, will be traded at the trade deadline. And I think the Raiders will pay Josh Jacobs. I think the Patriots will maximize his value once they see other running backs emerge. So I am going to sell it as well. All right, buy or sell. He needs 10 more. Albert Pujols will get to 700 career home runs.
I'm going to buy it. I love Albert. He's one of the best right-handed power hitters we've ever seen. Good Samaritan for baseball and what he has done for baseball for all these years, and he deserves it. I think he will retire with 700 home runs and go down as one of the greatest right-handed power hitters we have ever seen. So I'm going to buy it.
I'm going to buy it, too. He's also playing more, too, and he's hitting higher in the order. I think he was hitting 5th in a couple games this week, too. So definitely more playing time than he was getting in the beginning of the season when they were thinking of just a bench player / DH. So I'm absolutely going to buy that. All right, buy or sell. LeBron James will retire at the end of his extension with the Lakers.
I'm going to sell that. He's going to wait for his broski, I'm talking about his sonski, to come into the NBA. I believe one way or another his son's going to play in the NBA. He wants to play at least 1 year with him, so I'm going to sell that. He only signed a 2-year extension because it's going to take 2 years for his son to make the NBA because he's got to play 1 year of college eligibility. So I believe the 2-year deal was all because of that. I expect LeBron to play at least a 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it too. It might even be a different contract altogether that his son ends up playing. He might say, all right, I'm only playing 1 year, but maybe if his son plays well, maybe he stays in the league a little longer too. I would not rule that out either. I am going to sell it as well. Last one for today. The Texans will get disciplinary measures following the Deshaun Watson matter, as well as what Deshaun Watson got.
Well, the Commanders haven't, so I don't believe the Texans will either. I think it's absolutely appalling what Goodell has done to the NFL and really what these owners are just blinded to see. So I do not believe the Texans are going to be suspended or lose a draft pick or be fined. They're going to get away with this. It's all to attack the player. You saw what the NFL did to Tom Brady with the Deflategate. It wasn't Tom Brady. It was the organization. It was the team that was doing it. So They blame Tom Brady. They like to point fingers, and they're going to point their fingers at Deshaun Watson. The Texans, they're not going to lose draft picks, and they're not going to be fined anything.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it too. I think it's going to come after kind of the verdict with Dan Snyder and the Commanders. I think once that happens and also more information comes out with that. Now, I think they should. They definitely had involvement.
I think they should. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, they had involvement with helping out Deshaun Watson get these, so they should definitely get some disciplinary measures. But yeah, I think it'll happen maybe next year or when they have more information. I don't think it happens this year. I am going to sell it as well.